Hello and welcome. My name is Father William Maestri, and this is Overfed and Undernourished. In our first three videos, we have been discussing creation from the perspective of the Bible, from a president, in this case, Theodore Roosevelt, and a pope, Pope Francis. Different times, different places, different cultures, to some extent, different points of emphasis. But these three sources, these three ideas and realities, they have really come together, I think, in 10 important ways, 10 important themes, if you will. And I thought it would be helpful at this point if we reviewed them and saw how they really fit together. First and foremost, point one, is that God is the creator. God is the creator of the heavens and the earth. The world does not, creation does not make itself. It is the result, it is the effect of a good, all-powerful, and gracious God who has in fact created all that exists and sustains all that exists and brings it to its proper end. Secondly, because creation flows from God, creation is not God, but flows from God, creation is good, which means creation has meaning and purpose. God did not just decide to create something and then forget about it, or create it just on a whim. God created it with meaning and purpose. Thirdly, is that the human person is good. The human person is created in the image and likeness of God, blessed with intellect and free will. In fact, the book of Genesis tells us that God breathes his very life breath into that mold of clay, and it comes alive. So the human person is born or created good, made in the image and likeness of God. Man carries the very life breath of God. In addition to that, God not only creates man as good, not only creates the environment as good, but man is placed in a position of caring, if you will, stewardship over God's good creation. Man is to care for the creation that God has brought about. This is a tremendous responsibility and a tremendous trust on the part of Almighty God. We are to care for the earth and all that's in it. It's our responsibility. Fourthly, man is again responsible for the gift of creation. And this means that man is to live in creation with gratitude. We're grateful for the gift that indeed God has bestowed upon us. But it's not enough simply to be grateful. God calls the human person to also cultivate the creation. That is, to enhance it, to share in the very creative activity of Almighty God. Not to despoil it, not to abuse it, but to help it to flourish and to grow and to develop. And the third way in which stewardship is exercised is by passing it on to future generations. That is, creation has a legacy. It is to be enjoyed, but it's also to be cared for, so that those who come after us will also have that beauty and that wonder, but also the responsibility of caring for the earth. Fifthly, each human life is precious. Each human life, from conception to the point of natural death, is precious in the eyes of God, because each life is made in the image and likeness of God. And therefore, anything that disrespects the dignity of the human person, anything that abuses human life, whatever it may be, that is an affront, ultimately, to Almighty God. Human beings are indeed special. In addition to that, we are to roll back the culture of death. The culture of death is with us in many, many forms. Violence, hatred, war, destruction, the moral issues of abortion and euthanasia, human experimentation. All of these things are part of the culture of death. We are to advance the civilization of life and love. That's our purpose. That's an essential part of our stewardship, to promote life. Life is the first and most important gift. It's the first and most important responsibility that God has given to us, to promote life in all its forms, human and non-human. But humanity holds a special place in God's creation because the human person is made in the image and likeness of God. The next point of contact between the Bible, the Pope, and the President is that solidarity. We are to form a community, a beloved community of life and love, promoting the life of humans as well as the non-human. And in doing that, we are fulfilling what God has really entrusted to us. That is, to build that civilization of life and love. Not simply to care for the human part, as important and as primary as that is, but also to realize that we share a common environment. We share a common world, the human and the non-human. And it is the degree to which we promote that civilization of life and love that we truly fulfill our call to stewardship. Next, we are called to a life of involvement. We are to promote life in social and public policy. We are not to remain on the sidelines or passive in the face of very serious issues that may arise concerning human life, the dignity of the human person, questions of the poor, the abused, those who are trafficked, those who are the victims of neglect, as well as the non-human environment. We do not passively just sit by and observe and say, well, that's somebody else's issue, that's somebody else's problem. It's not. We are called as citizens, as creations of God. We are called to actively be stewards, not simply passively or apathetically watch what happens. Which leads us to our final point of intersection with the call of the Bible, the life and the call of President Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who was called the conservation president, and certainly the current Pope, Pope Francis. We are to live a life of action. That is, we are to walk the talk. We have a responsibility, and responsibility means that we have to often come out of our zones of comfort. We have to engage in the unfamiliar. We have to take risk. Life is a risk. And certainly when it comes to respecting human life and taking care of the non-human parts of God's creation, it involves us to take risk and to take chance, to become involved in various things that normally we wouldn't. Perhaps it may mean taking care of the homeless. It may be aiding and assisting some kind of environmental work that normally we never even thought about. Volunteering at a soup kitchen. All of those kinds of things take us out of our normal everyday comfort zones. But that's good because we're stretching ourselves, we're stretching our souls and our minds and our imagination. And that's also part of being a good steward of the human environment, and part of that is, of course, the non-human environment, and it's all to the glory of God. In our next video, we will raise the important issue and area of what can we do? What practically can we do in our everyday lives, in whatever our limitations are, our abilities, whatever our gifts? All of us can make a contribution to building the civilization of life and love. And that is at the very heart of stewardship in the Bible, in the writings and life of Theodore Roosevelt, and certainly in the witness, profound witness, of Pope Francis.